You ain't gonna believe this, but you used to fit right here. I'd hold you up and say to your mother, this kid's gonna be the best kid in the world. This kid's gonna be somebody better than anybody ever knew. And you grew up good and wonderful. It was great just watching you every day. It was like a privilege. Then the time come for you to be your own man and take on the world, and you did. But somewhere along the line, you changed. You stopped being you. You let people stick a finger in your face and tell you you're no good. And when things got hard, you started looking for something to blame, like a big shadow. Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Do you expect me to talk?
Take you back, do, take you back, yeah, take you back, do, take you back. Well, I've been told by some people, and they all say to take you back.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm your host Becca, and joining me as always are the amazing Dave Bond and Chris Byrne. How are you guys doing?
Feeling amazing. And
So
insane.
amazing that you said it at once. Too much amazing. We can't take much more. We're going to explode.
But you're going to explode? I dread to ask why, but...
Too much amazing.
Too much amazing.
Anyway. As you may have noticed, dear listeners, we are creeping towards the end of our Rocky series. This week we are discussing Rocky Balboa.
What, the character or the film?
Yeah, the character.
The eponymous.
We're just going to talk about his bad breath and body odour.
And how sweaty he gets after a fight. No, obviously the eponymous kind of... Well, it was then in 2006. Kind of like a cap on the series. That was until Creed came along fairly recently.
Yeah, I've always felt this was kind of like the apology to Rocky 5. I think it was kind of like, I kind of messed up with 5. I kind of want to just end it properly.
Redress the balance.
Yeah, but before we get into it, tell us, isn't it, Becca?
We have, obviously, Sylvester Stallone, not Yoke Bung, but Milo Ventimiglia, Antonio Tarver, Geraldine Hughes as Marie, Pedro Leval as Spider Rico, Mike Tyson, if you can spot him, written and directed by Sylvester Stallone, scored by Bill Conti, and released in 2006, I believe. So, a little bit over 10 years due, but anyway, we're recovering it now, so...
No, so Becca, this was
all that time to get over it.
This was a first watch for you, wasn't it?
It was. Yeah, I think I've obviously seen... The first one I've seen from the series, obviously, prior to watching this, is Creed, so I've kind of worked my way backwards. But yeah, this is very much first watch for me. I can see why you would kind of make it, say it was the apology for Rocky 5. There's definitely more to it. It's kind of quite soapy in some aspects. Like it may perhaps work to, have worked better as a TV drama. But no, overall, it's a film with heart that I enjoyed very much. What did you guys think of it?
I thought it was... it's funny to hear you say sort of akin to a soap opera, because I actually thought that about 5. Mm-hmm. I thought 5 was very much, and now his kid's struggling at school, and and now they're being not very nice to him, and they're having a debate around the dinner table about something, and that felt very TV actually, just in execution, just in themes and so on. This I thought less so. As years have gone by, it's not as essential to me as it once was. When I look at this series, I still think you could have stopped after 1, if not 2, but having gone the way we did with 3 and 4 being really over the top, and then 5 being unfairly maligned, but it is fair to say disappointing, I was grateful for this film at the time. When it was first announced, I thought this is just going to be awful. When you look at his output, with the possible exception of Copland, between Rocky 5 and this, it really was a lot of Sylvester Stallone either trying to branch out and failing into comedy, or trying to recapture old glories in a sort of marketplace that had changed. I'm thinking of things like Daylight, which is admittedly 10 years before this, but
I think that's where he started to kind of, that was his last big film before he descended into direct-to-DVD kind of
I do struggle to remember what he did in the interim, really. I know he did Copland the next year, which was a James Mangold film, I believe.
Yeah.
And then I struggle after that to remember really what he did. I mean, there's no doubt if we started reading it now, and I can't be bothered, but if we went through IMDb, I'd go, oh yes, of course he did this and he did that, and I'd probably remember them. But he was even turning up in things like Spy Kids 3.
That's really random.
I think I'm not as tough on somebody like Robert De Niro as others, for example, because I tend to think, once you've given us a couple of decades of your best work, if you want to slum it and have some fun in your 60s and 70s, fill your boots. If you really want to go and do Rocky and Bullwinkle and Meet the Fockers and stuff like that, then fine. You don't actually owe us anything. Do what makes you happy.
No, that's it. They produced their best work already, so they can just go and make silly little films.
And I feel the
do
same
what they
about
want to do.
Stallone, and most of his career had been made on very physical parts, and he was getting older. He clearly didn't have the greatest timing for comedy, although he can be sort of inadvertently funny now and again. So when they announced this, I mean, I'd seen in the very early days of the internet, I'd seen fan pages speculating on a Rocky 6, and it was the sort of thing you just laugh at, because Sylvester Stallone by then was in his 50s, and you just go, how would that even work?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they had announced it, and they said, well, he's been influenced both by the need to make amends for Rocky 5, but also George Foreman and Larry Holmes and people like that fighting into or near their 50s. And I thought, well, even then, George Foreman, he had a big hurrah in his mid-40s, but mid-50s is a bit of a different sell. So I went in extremely skeptical. And then I watched this film that was just full of heart. It was brave in some of the decisions it made. It was one of Sly's best performances, certainly until Creed, in the entire series. And I liked it a great deal. Years on, it is a sort of reprise, a last hurrah for the character, and not one I necessarily need. But I would put it quite comfortably better, ahead of about the last 3 entries, quite comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it is a lot more nostalgic. It's really more of a look back to, say, Rocky, the original, and as a series in general. I felt like it was very much of a tribute to the series, if anything, which is probably the best way to do it. But it's also a detriment to the film. It just felt like it didn't have much weight to it. But what it had was just let's just sort of just go back one more time down memory lane. The plot isn't particularly great. I mean, it touches on a few things, but it's pretty generic. But as you said, Dave, it's just full of heart and nostalgia. And I'll be honest, I cried within the first 15 minutes.
I'd be interested without meaning to embarrass you at all, because I cry quite easily at films. Yeah. When we get there, please tell us what it was, and I'll tell you. It
was in the first 15 minutes, but it was all the nostalgic elements of it, and I even kind of cried, and while crying, I was a bit came up for, well, that looks a bit naff, and then continue crying. So.
I definitely think the execution is sort of almost better than the weight behind it, in that it is as good as you could make a Rocky film at this time.
Yeah.
But it makes some leaps, and I do remember I did a sort of jokey little article for Smorgasbord the other day, where I was talking about, and I referenced where he said about there's some stuff in the basement. Now, I was joking, but at the same time, it took me by surprise at the time, because there was nothing in this film that told me that Rocky was overcome with pent-up frustration and rage. He was definitely living a bit in the past, There's no doubt about that, and it is a problem for the film because the film is almost going around and saying, wasn't that bit great? Remember that in Rocky? Remember that? That was really good, wasn't it? It does remind me, it does remind me how thin I felt the Adrian character was. She was used well at times to give Rocky heart and comfort and motivation. But I thought back on it as he was going around different places remembering Adrian. I was thinking, apart from when he won his title and apart from when Drago was counted out, I can't remember her smiling very much. Maybe once when, on the 9th wedding anniversary or something. But I never remember her saying anything particularly interesting or fun or spunky or light or anything. She was a bit of a non-character. So in some respects, I'm kind of glad she's gone. But as he's going around giving it, oh, Adrian this and oh, Adrian that, I can't quite go with him. I can believe his emotion because she was at the center of absolutely everything for him. But I think as an audience member, I struggle to go with him because I don't actually think in hindsight they necessarily had the chemistry they were hoping for.
Well, funny enough, that was the bit I cried at. So...
Well, the ice rink.
No, just that whole sequence of him like walking about. It was basically sort of go walk down memory lane, or this is the bit where we did this, or this is the bit where we did
Sly.
that.
It's as a viewer, was it in your memories or was it in Sly's performance? Because when he says when Paulie starts saying to him, like, I don't want to remember this stuff. I treated her awful.
Yeah.
And he says it wasn't the bad time. The old times weren't that great. And he says they were to me. And his voice cracked. And at that bit, you're just suddenly like gulp.
Yeah, I was a little bit like that as well. I was like, oh, could feel something, a bit of dust in my eye, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think it's partly down to I say nostalgia. I think it is looking back, at the series. You realise you like Rocky as a character, you like him as a guy, and I understand the whole you don't have the personal connection with Adrian, but you understood what she meant to him.
Definitely.
So
it shows you he didn't really have a lot else, did he?
No,
but, I mean, for such a personable guy who everybody liked, few people ridiculed. You think of Marie when she was younger. He was so popular and yet he had so few friends.
Just because it's a sense of how not isolated, but kind of like alone. He's become in that time frame, I guess.
Yeah. It does depend to me on how much you think about it, because in all honesty, the whole transition, the whole him, to his life now, the whole being where he is. I mean, somebody in Rocky's position would be able to get some way to trade on his fame, be it, commentating or, interviews or documentaries or anything. There would be something. So I struggle to find that particularly realistic, that he's struggling so much. And I also struggle with all of the reasons he wants to fight again. But at the same time, the execution's really terrific. Sly takes me with him on this. And so the film, and I think as well, I'm tempted to sit here, as I already sort of have, and say, well, it's just trading on goodwill. Do you remember how great that was? Do you remember how great that was? Well, at this point, the series is 30 years old. And it's earned that goodwill. It's a series that I've sat here and had problems with 3, 4, and 5. But overall, it's been entertaining most of the way through, and at times it's been terrific. So yeah, I kind of don't begrudge it a victory lap.
Yeah, it's. I think had this been fluffed in direction, it would have been a failure, or it would have been like, oh god, not another one of these. But I think everything's kind of so well done. I think it has a right amount of nostalgia. I mean, it does beat you up on the top of the head of it, but it does have a really, really nice look to it as well. It has like it's not old fashioned in the way it's done. It's kind of like trendied it up, but without dating it like he did last time around with.
Well, him going to the Rocky. Ice rink, Chris, is very much a metaphor for the film in itself, in that it feels of the now, or the now of the time, but it feels like when you they would say you can't go home again. It is a bit like, I mean, I remember living away from my hometown for years, and when I came back, everything felt the same but different, and I sort of belonged and I sort of didn't, and that's kind of how the film feels to me, and it's how Rocky looks in this environment. And they don't both give into it. Paulie speaks, for I'm sure portions of the audience in saying we can't live like this. We have to find a way forward.
Yeah, it's all about kind of, you stop living in the past and you kind of need to be focusing on the future and, as he says, fixing your eyes firmly on the front and what's ahead of you.
It's very sad, the life he's living. And he's living someone else's life. I mean, I never really noticed this at the time, but the restaurant, I mean, the fact it's called Adrian's is neither here nor there. Why wouldn't it be named after his wife, his pride and joy? But he said that in the commentary, Sylvester Stallone says, he said, if you look at it, there's not much boxing on the walls. He said there's the big watercolor of myself and Apollo, or Rocky and Apollo. He said, but when you look at the walls closely, there's a lot of Italian-themed things, but it'll be like opera singers and stuff like that. He said it's been feminized. It's Adrian's place.
Yeah.
And even that's become a monument to her. Well, I mean, if it's working as a restaurant, why would he change it? But at the same time, he's working in someone else's shrine.
Exactly, yeah. It's more kind of like, I'll say her shrine rather than like her shadow, for example.
Yeah.
So
I kind of
living for Adrian, really.
I kind of felt like a little bit kind of sorry as the kind of guy that he is, because he's basically kind of there. I mean, yes, it's his restaurant, and it seems reasonably successful as well. But he seems to be kind of like part of his thing is like, you go to Adrian, you get to like sort of see Rocky, and he tells the whole story again. And there was just like one bit where he's basically sort of, when I was fighting Apollo and doing this, you get a sense that they've heard it all before, and they kind of like not bored by it. They want to hear it, but there's almost like a sad kind of.
But it's like when you're a kid.
It's a little bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like when you're a kid, you want to watch the same film again,
Yeah.
or be read the same bedtime story again. There is that comfort in for him, but also for the audience. He says. And Mickey, I said to Mickey, if I could, and they finished the sentence for him. I would,
yeah.
There is precedent for this. I mean, he said that when he was very young, sort of 12 or something, he went to Jack Dempsey's restaurant, which is in New York. We'll come to that again, actually, because in the Godfather film, Michael is told to meet Sollozzo outside Jack Dempsey's. That restaurant is in that film. It's quite a famous restaurant, and obviously when Jack Dempsey was still alive, he would be doing this. He'd be in there telling stories. So it's not that unusual, particularly for ex-boxers, but also ex-boxers of Italian extraction, where there's a fondness for food and things like that. That, yeah, of course, they would trade on the Italianness of their background and sort of own a restaurant. So we're not finding him in a terrible place, but we're finding him just a little bit stuck. We're told that the restaurant was established 10 years before, and Adrian appears to have died in 2002. So she's been gone about 4 years, and he's just not moved on at all.
No, I think he's trading more in his cultural heritage rather than sporting heritage, I think.
Yeah, I think you get the impression the restaurant would be popular regardless.
Oh, yeah,
but obviously
definitely.
he is. And he works really hard at it. And I like that about Rocky. I like the fact that not only is he a grafter, and that was very much in his sort of boxing persona.
Oh, yeah.
But of course he would. It was Adrian's.
Exactly.
He would do absolutely everything he could to keep that bit of Adrian's dream, if you like, alive. Because it's never said explicitly, but I could almost guarantee that it would have been Adrian who said to him, let's try a restaurant.
Well, Adrian with the big ideas. I know, it's a shame he's not really sort of doing anything with the mixed gym, isn't it, by this point? You would have thought that would have been...
Yeah, I thought it would have been a storyline, maybe he revived the gym, perhaps.
Possibly.
I do know of boxers when they retire who won't go to a gym. Because the simple reason that it's kind of addictive, and once you're around the sort of feel and smells of it and everything else again, it's possibly best to stay away. But at the same time, when you think at one point that's all he had, perhaps he would have made a bit more of it. I don't know.
I do think, obviously we do get into that when we get to Greed, but I do think what the film handles well is the reason why Rocky goes to fight. It's not done too much, it's kind of more acknowledged at the end. But the whole idea of, I just need to let out this beast one more time. I need to sort of just get it out of his system. Just as
I did feel that count came from nowhere though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I did, but I did like
it
it as an idea.
But when he was in with Paulie and said, "There's some stuff in the basement," I did not immediately know what he meant. And then he went in here and pointed at his gut, and I'm like, "All right, I get it." But I'm suddenly like, I was like, genuinely for a split second, I thought he was saying, "Well, I've still got some equipment at home in the basement." So I thought it was. I mean, it does what the plot needs it to do. It does it as realistically as it's ever going to do it. It does show us a couple of well-known people as well in pursuit of all of this. It handles it as well as it can. There are threads it goes through that I'm not so sure about. The whole steps thing I'm not so sure about. But yeah, I mean, the overall thing for me is I enjoy it. I think it's got far better than it's ever got any right to be. I don't think it's as good in hindsight as what we're going to get next week. I might have argued different a few weeks ago, but yeah, really good stuff.
I will say I don't think what's the fellow, the boxer, is it
Antonio Tarver?
Yeah, for the knocks on Tommy Morrison. No, I think this guy even falls short even by that standards, which is kind of a shame.
He doesn't have to carry as much as Tommy though.
No,
so
I mean
it doesn't hurt it as much.
The film does try and give it some acknowledgement, but I don't think it gives his character much to work with, and I don't know. He kind of comes off as very, very flat. I think at least Tommy came across as a bit more lively. I mean, it might have been like the mullet and the puffy jacket, that kind of. But yeah, no, I felt like his I mean, it's not his fault because at the end of the day he's not an actor. He's a boxer, isn't he? So I can't really knock him.
I mean, I don't know, Chris. I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, I watch Rocky V and think, God, I wish they'd cast someone else. And I don't feel that here particularly. For the little bit he has to do, it's perfectly fine. Yeah,
I guess you just need like a bigger reason for it. But I think that the plot itself is pretty weird.
He wasn't first choice. First choice was Roy Jones Jr. Now, Roy Jones Jr. apparently just didn't return Sly's calls. You'll have seen Roy Jones Jr. in The Matrix Reloaded. One of the best pound-for-pound fighters I've ever seen in my life. Tarver actually beat him, but that was when he was slightly past his best. And not that long after he stepped up to heavyweight and won a version of the title there. And draining himself back down to light heavyweight seemed to ruin him somehow. But, for British listeners, think peak Nazim Hamed and take away some of the obnoxiousness, and you've kind of got a bit what Roy Jones Jr. was like, incredibly difficult to hit. And he can act a little bit, but as I say, we ended up with Antonio Tarver, and he does okay as far as I'm concerned.
Like, I kind of feel with Antonio Tarver's character, there's no, because he's so very much kind of seemed to be controlled, but there's no kind of real threat, or even though it's just an exhibition bout between them, there's kind of no real threat there. I don't think that was my only other criticism. But otherwise, no, I found this film thoroughly enjoyable, and yeah, certainly preferred it to 5.
So, shall we enjoy this film sequentially?
Yeah, okay. Back in a couple of hours, folks.
Bye.
It's actually quite short. It's only like 90 minutes.
It's a bit more than that. It's about 100 minutes.
Yeah, I was really surprised considering the length of some of these films, especially by today's standards, and obviously, 2006 standards as well.
Imagine if Christopher Nolan had directed it.
Oh bloody hell! 5 hours long. Jesus.
Every punch would be like.
Quality, but...
Every punch would be like.
Every punch would have a theme as well. And
it'd take an hour to get there.
The theme of that punch was loneliness. Yeah. We start with the sort of banner again, where we see a little bit of scenes to come, like him outside.
Sort of like previously on Rocky.
And we cut to real footage of Antonio Tarver knocking people out. So we're introduced reintroduced to Rocky. We're introduced to Mason the Line Dixon.
That's a great name. That's a fantastic name.
And in Rocky 7, he will fight International the Dateline.
That's very clever, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but after Tommy Gunn, it's like, Jesus Christ.
I know. It's just like,
Can't
oh,
you just call
really?
him John Jackson or something?
John Smith.
I think John Jackson was a real fighter, but yeah. Yeah, so was Jack Johnson, actually. But yeah, so we go straight to that.
Jack Jones versus.
Yeah. Versus no one, because he's on his Jack
Yeah,
Jones.
exactly.
He's only Jack Jones, that's it. So-
Do we start with Rocky getting out of bed?
We kind of don't we see the match with on Line Dixon. Yeah, we kind of like have a match. And he kind of like he kind of wins his fight, and he's kind of getting booed.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like, why are people booing? And basically we get like in touch into his character, basically saying, well, you're just a paper champion. You're not like, there's no one really relatively.
What they say later on during the computer fight, which is voiced by Stu Nahan, who died not that long afterwards and was one of the commentators in the early fights. They say something along the lines of Balboa fought in a much stronger, deeper era. This film is not afraid to address the fact that certainly post Lennox Lewis and even for some of his career, the talent pool's been sort of dropping away a bit. That hasn't always been the case. I mean, the early 90s, for example, were really strong. But, yeah, he's got no one to fight. So he's, taking on these fighters, beating them fairly easily. He's not drawing... They say to him later on, you're not getting heavyweight champion money because the gates aren't as good or the pay-per-view figures aren't as good or whatever. So basically, you've got a decent champion. I don't think he's ever meant to be terrifying like a Clubber Lang or something, but you've got a decent champion in a very, very shallow era of talent. That's what it is.
Yeah, looking for like a great competitor
Looking
to
for a
prove his
defining
worth,
fight.
really.
Absolutely.
And he's kind of annoyed by it, and so we establish that, and then I like how the sequence, because it kind of goes like from a train from New York to Philadelphia. And it goes straight into the take it back, dude. And it has a really nice traditional, like
it's on the
first film, isn't it? With his brother.
It's on the front of this episode.
Group.
Yeah,
that's the music I've put on the front of this episode.
And
It's always been lovely.
You kind of feel like this is kind of style, this kind of like a new look, but with traditional music, like sort of should have been what they did with 5. It just seems like, why didn't you do this? You would have made that film so much better if you could out.
This is the anniversary, isn't it? So it's like the big anniversary film, and harking back to all those moments. I think.
Yeah.
I think perhaps maybe when they were making 5, they didn't. I don't know if he envisioned that, several years later, he was going to sort of make another one. But yeah, I don't know. We don't know what's going on in their head at the time.
Yeah, there's no breakdancing in this one though.
Rocky is lonely. He said that he deliberately put the emphasis on Cuff and Link. He's living in the past, the turtles we saw in the very first film. Now if they live that long, why wouldn't you still have them? But it's almost like
they do.
But it is almost like nothing's changed.
Instead of Butkus, we see what's he called, Punchy.
That's later on. Yeah,
That's later on in the film.
That was deliberate.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition with Butkus, he does mention that on the commentary.
Yeah.
And he's running a restaurant.
Yeah, he looks good in a nice burgundy jacket.
He does.
Talking.
Big Alan Partridge fan.
Yeah, a blazer.
When I saw that, I did think Partridge.
Blazer badge set.
But
he
seems like a good boss as well. He's got like
nice to everyone.
Yeah, he's sort of like it's established that the what you call, not the waitress but the
hostess, if you like.
Yes, I suppose is pregnant, so obviously there'll be a job position, funnily enough, coming soon. So yeah, he seems like a nice guy. It's like, okay, we sort of find Rocky in a reasonably good place, even though it's very mournful because he's we see him sitting on the grave of.
He's got a business. In fact, he's probably got 2 because he does still own the gym. So he's getting by, and he lives in an ordinary row house, but it's all neat and tidy. He's very organised. He puts breakfast out for Paulie every morning, and it's a life that's in a routine. But we see little things like he'll go out and try just doing some chin-ups Really, he's not fit enough at the moment. And I don't know at what point in the film. There's a point in the film where he tries drinking eggs as well, and he can't do it anymore, and he looks really frustrated with himself.
Also, you think he'd learned by now that it's actually unhealthy for you.
Yeah. Well, Sylvester Stallone knows it's unhealthy for you. Rocky doesn't.
Yeah, very true.
But we're introduced. It's fairly efficient storytelling. We're introduced to the fact that him and his son have a difficult relationship.
Yeah, that's a bit awkward, isn't it? 'Cause he's sort of working for a sort of, I guess, a banking firm, I would imagine.
Yeah, something like that.
Something along those
Works
lines.
in the city.
In the city, yeah.
And again, Sylvester Stallone says on the commentary that he deliberately shot that somewhere very stark and with lots of sort of geometric shapes, very angular, just basically to just show you he's not in his comfort zone. He's not in his world.
No, something that's completely alien to him.
Is it just me, or does like Caesar come off as a bit of a twat in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, like he does. I mean, I think there's no getting away because like Rocky hasn't really doing anything wrong. He's just
he's just a bit of a.
He's only guilty of having been a really high achiever, and now his son is in a job that requires your brain. You don't have to talk to Rocky for that long to find that he's not overly bright. So he behaves like he's really embarrassed by his dad.
Yeah. Well, he sort of says it's like a big shadow, isn't he? Kind of like, and it's just
at least
holding him back,
that.
really, rather than feeling proud for it.
I'd feel more annoyed with him if he didn't say that. The very fact he says to him, "You cast a big shadow," is like, yeah, okay, well, at least you're admitting it's tough rather than just being a pig to your dad.
Yeah, everyone's being a knob because of it. So.
I mean, we do get sort of like to see what his point of view, because he just gets told off by his boss, and then next minute is like his boss creeping up to him because he's got like Rocky, like, oh hey, you're not going to introduce me, and like taking that, and gets him to take a photo. So you imagine like that would piss you off. That would be like, But then again, what's Rocky meant to do? No, go fuck yourself. You shout at my son.
Yeah, and you can tell Rocky's not uncomfortable with it. I mean, he's polite, but he's like, yeah, this guy's a bit of an asshole.
Yeah.
So we've got that. We've also got. He said he's going to come to the restaurant that evening, and he also catches up with Paulie and says it's tonight because it's the anniversary. I'm presuming it means it's either his wedding anniversary or the anniversary of her death. I don't know which, or it might even be her birthday. I don't know which, but it is some date of importance to Rocky, and they go around all the old haunts once a year. He turns up, and they go in.
It could be the anniversary of the date when they got together.
Yeah, it could have been. It could be because they do go to the rink, and they do go back to where the apartment was and all the rest of it that he was staying in. I quite like all of this.
Yeah,
I really do.
Well, this is the bit that made me cry, isn't it? So it's it kind of. I mean, it did have a bit. It's goofy bits, but had a nice sort of characterization of Paulie. And we will say this for this film, it does give Paulie's not a complete prick in this.
No, he's lovely.
He's actually a realised character. Maybe that's because it's like he's at an elder age now, so he's a lot more resentful. But I think this is kind of like a nice moment for him to actually acknowledge, like, no, I was a prick to my sister. I don't remember all the bad times. It's like just making me feel guilty all the time.
And even later on, he says to Rocky, I'm horrible to you too.
Yeah.
He's all very honest, and he's also quite grounded as well. Where kind of Rocky keeps on sort of living in the past, he's trying to kind of bring him to the future and kind of keep him grounded rather than off in a distant land maybe.
So the opening scenes of the film are all about Rocky's. We see what Rocky's doing now. We see he stands around and tells patrons stories, has photos taken with patrons, particularly there's a kid there and it's his birthday or something like that. He'll do all of that. Paulie is still working at the meatpacking plant, and is still is getting older and struggling with it. There's no doubt. His son has gone on to be a really good member of society, but he struggles with his dad. And keeps letting him down by not coming to the restaurant and things like that. And the other thing we see is Spider Rico is working in the kitchen for his food.
Yeah, how about that?
Now, Spider Rico, if you've forgotten, listeners, was the very first shot of the very first film. Rocky was fighting him.
Is that the guy headbutted?
Yeah. That's Spider Rico. And he's now on hard times, and it just says everything about both ex-fighters, that they often reach a point where the enmity goes and they become friendly. But it's also Rocky. He's on hard times, so Rocky's feeding him.
Yeah, sort of giving him a job, and because he kind of feels a bit bad, you know. There's a scene where you see Spider downstairs and he's washing up. He's like, "Oh, come on, Rocky, you know, give me something to do."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, just go upstairs and relax," and you know. But I think, you know, he obviously needs something to fill his time. And Rocky's there to kind of help him out. Then you got sort of another comments. It's like, "Didn't he knock you out? You know, didn't you knock him out?" So I think it's a bit sad, but it's very kind that, you know, that Rocky's there to kind of give him the leg up, as it were.
Yeah, it's also a lovely sense of like gratitude as well from him. It's like, come on, we got to do something. You're feeding me, goddamn, you know, that kind of thing. So it's a nice sort of, you know, way of like what Rocky does. Really, he builds bridges, doesn't he?
He does.
He does.
Yeah. So after that, he ends up going to the bar.
He does. Although I will say before we get to there, the bit I found really, really goofy, well, and missed while I was crying, was the kind of like ghostly vision of Adrian.
Yeah.
I just thought
that was a bit strange.
Well, it wasn't strange, but it was just like, yeah, no, it just looked a bit like, you know, cliche. I think it would have been a lot more impactful just like staring at the step. I think we would have known, you know, we would have got understood just from that alone. But yeah, that was my only sort of like weird sort of emotion, and Mr. Crying going like, well, that's a bit shit. Continuing crying. Yeah,
yeah, I know it's all very sad. But he says that he tried to recreate when he goes up the stairs and he invites her in and she looks up to him. He said he tried to recreate that shot. He said, but I just don't know what lenses they used. He said, no matter what I did, I couldn't get the angle exactly the same.
So he goes to the bar. This is like the old bar that.
There is a deleted scene with the owner in it who's lost a leg to diabetes. I think the actor really had lost a leg and he died a few years afterwards. But yeah, Marie is working behind the bar. Little Marie from the first film, Screw You, Creepo.
Yeah, who'd have thunk it? But yeah, she's a single mum.
Yeah, whose had a child with a European gentleman.
Yeah, Rocky's geography isn't quite the best in this film, but hey ho.
So yeah, there's a lot of mouthing off in the bar. It's trying to kind of tell us things have got worse somehow in the area. I mean, it wasn't great to start with, but he's just getting mouthed off by people who don't really know who he is, or they sort of know who he is, so they want to drink, but there's no respect for him. They talk to Marie like shit, and Rocky ends up pinning one of them against the wall. And he said that the studio wanted him to actually beat the guy down, and he just said, "That's just not Rocky. That's just not Rocky. He's proven his strength, and he's got an apology out of them good enough."
Well, it's like when he was working for the mob, wasn't he? You know, he's like
he doesn't want to do that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, also it's like I think it's just down to just respect and just like the downgradedness of everything. Like the girl's like in her PJs. So she's literally one of those, like, she can't be asked to get dressed properly.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, so it is like that, what you know, whatever. So yeah, so he offers Maria left home, who didn't remember calling him Creepo. Don't know if that's deliberate or not, but where she's like, I don't remember insulting you.
Why would she? It was one evening.
Yeah,
well, no, that's it. Exactly.
And it's not like she said, "Screw you, Creepo," to the heavyweight champion of the world. It was just some local pug in the area. Why would she remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, the original actress wasn't available. She did shoot a cameo in number 5 that was cut.
Yeah.
But to its benefit, really, because she would have been a prostitute, and of course this allows them not to go down that path. I don't know what to think of the whole Marie thing. She's an Irish actress, Geraldine Hughes, I think she's called. Mm-hmm. And she's fine in it. It's all fine. I like the idea of Rocky finding friendship.
Yeah, I think that's nice, isn't it?
Yeah. He said that again. He said the studio were trying to push it in a romantic direction, and he kept resisting.
Yeah, no, I got the impression from that as well. I think that's kind of, as we were kind of saying it near the top of the show, it's kind of, apart from Paulie, I would imagine there aren't kind of many other sort of circle of friends that we see Rocky having. So I think kind of friendship there is probably like the one tenuous link. I think to have the kind of obviously post Adrian romance angle kind of like foisted upon him, I think that would probably be a bridge too far. So it's kind of good that it's kind of scaled back in that respect. But But I say, yeah, I sort of like her in the role, and I think she does a really good job with the material that she's given. So.
Yeah, I kind of like the dialogue of saying like, my wife's gone, but she's not gone.
She's not gone, and the way he
exactly.
says that, he's like, I kind of like that. Where do we go from there? I think we must logically we should go straight to Mason now. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, he pretty much like offers like tells him to come and visit the restaurant, doesn't he? And then yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, we do get some. Do we go back to Mason, kind of like being called out?
Mason doesn't Mason go to see his original trainer?
Yes, that's it.
And it's just that he says that it wasn't his decision to get rid of him. So it was another one of these things where he got very big very quickly, and presumably they went and got him a named trainer instead of Mickey. Do you know what I mean? Instead of his version of Mickey, they went and got him, a fucking Emmanuel Stewart or something.
Yeah.
A name. You never get the impression that it is so much disloyalty as just going along with what he felt his career required. But of course, it's now very lonely at the top for him because he's being booed. His promoters who were there to talk him up and give him some kind of succour, telling him you're not getting heavyweight money and all the rest of it, and he sort of demands he wants him back. But then I think we go to the computer simulation, which Rocky doesn't see originally because he's working.
No, you kind of see it on TV in a bar or something, I think, isn't it?
Rocky's boy does though, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's
They're
when
in a bar after work.
That's the bar scene. Yeah.
Just to annoy him further, just to.
Again, they're all like making fun of him, but in a nice way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not the son of anyone who was famous and a massive overachiever. Particularly, it'd be worse if it was in your field, I suppose. But I mean, my father didn't do too badly for himself, but he wasn't like super famous or anything. So we can't know what this is like. But I do think it's overplayed, and I don't actually think Milo Ventimiglia is that good in this film. He's best known for Heroes, I think.
Yeah, I think Gilmore Girls and Heroes. I mean, that's the kind of thing I know him for, really.
The thing is, I don't watch a lot of TV now, so he could be like the lead in something really famous, and I wouldn't necessarily know.
No, but that's it. But I think it's kind of that kind of time, probably about 10 years ago. I mean, he had sort of like Heroes, Lost.
Yeah.
It's kind of when TV sort of maybe modern
I can
TV
see why he
sort
was
of come into its own.
Sly said that he was asked why he didn't cast his son again.
Yeah, I did wonder that.
And he said that
He's shit at acting.
he didn't say that.
Oh.
And I was just trying to follow. He said that the thing is with the themes of the film, he just said I thought it was a bit too close to home. He said that if I'd cast my son, and you've got all this we don't get on and stuff, people would be, is that what it's really like? And he just said it was awkward. And he said Milo struck him because he's got a wonky mouth exactly the same as him. He said it's even wonky in the same place.
I must say
he said he reminded me of me and with a bit of Adrian in there, and so I can sort of see that.
Yeah, I can see immediately, because I did sort of wonder why isn't his own son in this sort of thing? But obviously you kind of see like the facial features and the fact that he does kind of speak out one side of his mouth. You can see the resemblance.
Do you think that would be the case though, if say Stallone happened to actually be a decent enough actor? Like it's like if let's just say like from Rocky V, you end up having an acting career that was, should we say,
I think
at
it
least.
Depends how it would have played out, Chris. Because let's say Sage Stallone had gone on to be a very well-known actor. Then you've got the issue of would he want to do this because it's a supporting role. But let's say if he'd been really famous, you may have seen him on like the red carpet together and posing for photo shoots and joint interviews with GQ magazine and things like that. In which case it would have been, their relationship would have been much more transparent to us, and so he probably would have been much more comfortable about casting him. The fact that Sage Stallone sort of went back into the background to suddenly cast him now, and those two don't get on particularly well at all, I can see why Sly might think, "Now this is awkward."
Yeah, so I guess. So in that context, it would do. It would come across as like, are you just sort of letting out your dirty laundry in public?
Yeah. The computer fight is based on a real thing that happened in 1969.
Wow, they had computers back then.
Well, they must have. I don't know if they did it on an abacus or something. I don't know how it worked, but they had Muhammad Ali was banned from fighting for refusing to go to Vietnam. He was in something like the third year of his ban at this point, and with ex-wives and children and everything else, he was struggling financially. Rocky Marciano had retired unbeaten in 1956, I think it was, and he was missing the fame and all the rest of it. And so they came up with this computer idea. Rocky Marciano got himself in shape, put on a toupee for it and everything, took it very seriously. And they filmed 75 one-minute rounds. And then they filmed various different endings, knockouts either side, points, decisions, referees stepping in, all sorts of different things. And then and I don't know how sophisticated it was, but the story is they put all the variables about the fighters into a computer, and it spat out a result, and they actually they edited it together to match that result, which was a 13th round Marciano knockout, which is exactly what they're saying Rocky gets here.
Okay.
I don't know if it's ever said in the film. It's certainly said in either the bonus features or the commentary that it's a 13th round knockout. It's taken exactly from that.
Oh, I did wonder. I was thinking, is that real? Because sadly I never knew anything about it prior to this, so it's interesting to learn.
It is based on something real. Yes.
Yeah.
Do you think that alone? I think it's not really heavily looked upon, is it? But do you think that fact that it goes to the 13th round and it ends in a knockout for Rocky. For Rocky, the fact that it doesn't go to knockout is almost like a victory for Dixon. In terms of it's a victory for both of them. It's like victory that he managed to prove everyone that he didn't get knocked out by Rocky, and it's a victory for Rocky for
Oh, what you mean? Because the computer said he'd be knocked out, and it went to the. I don't know.
I mean,
I've kind of got problems with all of that because I will get to it later in the film. I'm not convinced Dixon would have been quite as delighted with the way it all panned out, but this supposedly gets everyone talking. Mostly, now, I think had Rocky seen that and gone, fuck me, I want to fight him, then it might have been pushing it. But actually, it gets driven by the promoters who see an angle. But Rocky the next night, Paulie comes in and says, watch this. They show a replay of it, and suddenly Rocky wants to fight again. And I find that all kind of cringe-making.
There's the bit where he has that sort of emotional speech at the.
He does. He says that he wants to fight again. Paulie says to him, "What? You haven't peaked yet?"
You haven't peaked yet. That's
and
a great line.
Kind of laughs at him, and then he says about having stuff in the basement.
Right.
Emotions, and he does start to lose it. And I have to say what you like about Sylvester Stallone, but a poorer actor, I would have laughed at this. But I thought he was so good in this scene that I'm just like. Yeah, you've taken me with you. I think this is daft, but it's taken me with you.
I think that's the whole charm of Slayer, isn't it? I mean, you sort of knock his acting over the years and everything, but at the same time, you have gone on this emotional journey with this character, and also with Sly, in terms of director, producer, filmmaker, screenwriter, and you've kind of gone that whole kind of arc with him. So it's silly at times, but it makes it all the more palpable and all the more bearable. I think because of it.
I think he's just got I think, especially when it comes to Rocky, he takes things personally. So he kind of he works to do a good job, and obviously his heart's in it. Usually. Yeah,
he's got that emotional investment in it as well, haven't you? So.
Definitely. I mean, especially when it comes to this, because obviously he wanted to kind of end it on a good note, and kind of wanted to kind of give fans of the series something good to go off on. Sort of a nice little sort of. And a note to ending. So yeah, I think he's kind of he's putting everything into this. So where do we go now?
We go to the State Athletic Commission first, where Rocky sat there all suited and booted, ready to hear how his request for a boxing license has gone, and they turn him down on the basis that he's passed everything, but with his age and wear and tear and everything, they can't in good conscience license him. And he gets up and gives this, speech. It's kind of a ramble about, the Bill of Rights and all that kind of shit, and how he should be able to do whatever.
Ramble, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I've never liked it though. I've always thought, I know America are all about fucking small government and people should be able to do what they want, but I'm totally with the board on this. The guy's 55 and had borderline brain damage.
No, it's more health and safety, isn't it?
It's just, why would they fucking license him? But they do anyway. And then we go on, and then we go to the promoter saying to Dixon, "Guess who's just applied for a license and got it?"
So where does Dixon stand? Dixon is kind of like what fighting old guy.
Well, he says I can beat him with both hands tied behind my back, and the obvious point is if he loses to him, he's ruined, and if he beats him, it's so what? It was an old man.
Yeah.
But I think they tried to sell it to him on the angle of heart. It's not about how good you beat or don't beat him. It's about showing heart.
I don't really buy that, really. I mean, at least from his point of view, because he say it is like kind of like, well, so what? I either beat an old man or I get really embarrassed, So, like, I think maybe for Rocky it would be all heart, But
I just don't think you would touch this in a million years.
Yeah.
You keep working away and hoping for.
But you can understand that. You can say if he just keeps saying no, if he says no, then what happened? The promoters will say like, Dixon's running scared of Rocky, and all that. So obviously it's just like, oh, for God's sake. So now he has to kind of force him to do it. I imagine maybe that's what they should have done. Maybe should have done that bit in the film.
Yeah, it's like it's this or nothing, or
Yeah.
it's this or you're on your own.
Okay.
We are not making the money we should make. You have to reset your relationship with the public, which is kind of would have something in it. But then they go to Rocky's restaurant to talk to him about it, and they sell it as he respects the hell out of your Rock.
And Sly's like,
The one who does the least talking, Lou DiBella, the bald one, he's actually a real life promoter using his real name. He's playing himself.
Yeah, Lou DiBella as Lou DiBella.
I think he used to write. I think he used to work for Showtime before that, the cable network. So yeah, I've known of this guy for like 20 odd years. So that gives it a little bit more sort of reality as well. That it is the real boxing world of the time coming to find Rocky Balboa. Well, we go to the next thing we go to is, I think we go straight to the don't we go straight to the press conference after that?
oh crap! Goes that quick? Okay, so yeah, I think this is the point where the film kind of gets like builds traction. Really, it kind of takes its time, and then off the plot now it just goes.
I just whipped through it.
Yeah.
But I know that Mickey. I don't know. I can't remember when. Not Mickey. I keep saying Mickey. I can't remember when Paulie gets fired exactly.
Yeah.
But I know it's around here, and I know that. I think it's before this, because as soon as it's all announced, he's immediately. I might be able to make some money out of this. And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And it's after the press conference that he talks to his son outside the restaurant. So at the press conference, you've got a very defensive Mason saying, I'm 33-0, I'm the world champion, I've got no respect. Tony Burton turns up again, Duke, and he says the fight will be competitive. And a portion of the profits are going to go to some charity or something. A portion.
Yeah.
A portion.
After we've all made shitloads, we'll give him a tenner.
After expenses.
Yeah.
You'll be amazed how heavy our expenses are. And then his son goes to the restaurant to speak to him that night, basically. Rocky is still wearing exactly what he was wearing at the press conference. And his son takes him outside, and we get basically the most famous speech in probably the Rocky series.
Oh, what it's not about...
Yeah, he says to him, I just get a little bit ahead, and now this will ruin it. People only talk to them because of me, because of you. Please don't do this for me. And then he starts saying about, you used to fit in the palm of my hand, and he didn't.
Yeah.
I saw him when he was a baby. He didn't at all. And the head of hair might. But so
He
then
has
he
very
said,
nice hair in this film.
yeah. So then he said, he says something to him like, you grew up really good, but then you let people stick their finger in your face and say you're no good. And then he said, life's really hard, but to succeed, it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. And the best bit is where he just says, that's how winning is done. And I was just thinking, yeah, that's actually Rocky's thesis in one go.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. It's not about how hard you get hit. It's about how hard you get hit, and keep moving, and you get up again and keep on going. No, I think that sums up everything.
And there's probably some truth to it. And yes, it's corny, but I think it's beautifully written. I think it's beautifully acted. And the way he just shouts at him, that's how winning is done. I just think, that's the cherry on it. Perfect.
Yeah, that is how winning is done.
It's a nice sort of way for Sly to be like the dad actually sort of telling him off while giving him some wisdom as well. It's like, look, stop being a dick, get your act together, do it for yourself. Don't.
Yeah. But it's couched in love. It's couched in compliments. It's couched in what a great guy you've become. You are a really great guy. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. You know? And they reconcile at Adrian's grave the next day. We find out earlier in the film Rocky goes there every day.
Yeah.
To talk to her. In the next film, we see he leaves a chair there as well, which I love. Lovely little touch that. There's a chair in the tree.
Yeah, it's a nice little touch, isn't it?
Well, we see it in this film as well. He kind of like, he leaves the chair.
Did we see him take the tree? Do we? I don't know. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But I noticed it more in the next one where he grabs it out of the tree.
So did I, in fact. Yeah.
Yeah. So they reconcile, and then he says, I want to be with you. So he's quit his job. And that's like Paulie asking for a job in the first one, isn't it? It's like, he's about to retire. This is not a long-term career goal.
No.
But then I suppose what we're saying is do what you love, and he doesn't love his job.
Yeah.
No, that's it. Yeah, he kind of realises where his passions lie, as it were. And decides to leave that instead.
What passion that is, we don't know.
No, but some kind of, he just wants to be with Rocky, doesn't he? So, and follow him around.
Hey, Dad, I'm going to be a boxer like you. Oh, fuck's sake.
Well, yeah, that was quite. I think that's something that really interested me because it's obviously you kind of got that wedge, as it were, between Rocky and Robert, not Caesar. It looked even less monkey-like, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. Obviously, how it kind of sets him in this world that's completely different to Rocky, and doesn't want to be a boxer and doesn't want to follow in his footsteps, as it were, and try to live in that shadow. But yeah, so it's quite. You kind of feel like when he does sort of quit his job and think, no, I want to follow you and support you in your fight. You just think, oh, really? Okay, well, fair enough, you know.
So then the next thing that's really was in all the trailers as well, as long as what you haven't peaked yet, is Duke talking to him at the very outset of training.
Let's build some hurting
your legs
bombs.
have gone, so you're running serious runnings out, and you've got calcium deposits all over your joints. So sparring's out. Let's start building some hurting bombs.
Yeah, it's kind of like looking at all these issues. He's like looking at Paulie, and he's like, yeah, I got those. But yeah, the logic is basically all you got is like sheer power. So basically, just go into like a bulldozer and just.
Yeah, you've got a puncher's chance. That's all you've got. Yeah. You're not going to be fast. In the interim, he does meet with Steps at the dog pound, and they get punchy. And he says on the commentary, it's pretty obvious. I mean, this is nothing you wouldn't already know. But they deliberately chose a small dog, and he said, well, this is where Rocky is, a bit, knocked down, a bit past it, all the rest of it. Not necessarily the first one you'd go to. Bucket was this big, vibrant young dog, and and it's a lovely way to see that there's no malice in Rocky, because they call it punchy out of an insult to him, but he just handles it really well. He's not a violent dog, out of an insult to Rocky.
To Rocky, yeah,
Steps
definitely.
Basically says, let's call it punchy, and he's insulting Rocky, but Rocky just goes, okay, turns it back on him.
Is it
turns it back around?
Is it testament to the film that I always completely forgot about Steps?
No, I think Steps is a waste of fucking time in this, and then it ends up doubling up.
Kind of storyline too far, I think.
His son's there, and his foster son's there, if you like, and it's just no, you haven't thought that through very well at all.
No, I must say, Steps' character does kind of fall by the wayside. You don't end up bothering with him at all very much, which is a shame. But I think it's probably perhaps one story thread too far. I think
he just seems a bit too eager to offer him jobs, and it's sort of so I get that it's nice to be nice, but all right, don't It does feel a little bit like he's, I mean, it's fair enough to do kind of address it with Marie saying, what do you want? It's like, but he's just trying to be nice and trying to be do right about nice people, but it does come across a little bit, all right, it's like, calm down, and the idea of Steps is, he's at first he's like, who the fuck is this guy? And then the next bit is like, oh, I really like Rocky. It's just a little bit fun. It just feels like it's not very well developed.
So we then head off to he has a talk to Marie, and Marie's fighter's fight, which is just neither here nor there as a scene. They go to Las Vegas, where the fight's going to take place at the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. Seen quite a few famous fights come from that place, so yeah, that's a real venue that does get used. They actually, one of the first things they filmed, because the film came out in America November 06, came out over here just after Christmas, but the first things they filmed were November 05, a full year earlier, because this was actually the Bernard Hopkins Jermaine Taylor fight, the second one between them. Funnily enough, I thought I'd pretty much gone off boxing by this point, but I've seen both of those fights, so I must have still been somewhat interested. So they filmed all the entrances and all the people shouting Rocky's name and all the rest of it. That's real. That's fight fans. They just said, right, we've got this thing we're filming. They filmed it all in 3 days. They tried to improvise as much as possible, and I think that actually hurts the fight, but we'll get to that. Adrian, he said that Adrian's photos taken to him by Marie the night before, and he said that was the one way to sort of neutralise the romance thing. That he said where he is, and now she said where she is. Well, here's the picture of Adrian. I'm not replacing her. I'm not even trying.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I think it's just like have that female love interest, but not really, isn't it? It's just kind of like have, maybe just have like let's kind of have a female in there, because Adrian's not here. Let's just have throw a female in the relationship, because it's all pretty mannish in here.
Yeah, I mean, I understand all that, and it's fine. There are little things I like that we now cut to basically an HBO broadcast. Now, it was still made by Sly, the director, but what he said he did was he went and got HBO's playbook, if you like. That HBO have a guide to how you film these things, where you put your cameras and all the rest of it. So there's one in each corner, or one pointing at each corner, and there's drawings of it where they go, and he showed some of this in the special features. And so he copied all of that, used real HBO guys. You've got the guy who says, so they don't have to call it an execution. That's Larry Merchant, now in his 80s, but I've seen him call many fights and interview many fighters, afterwards and so on. You got Jim Lampley there and Max Kellerman, I think it is. They're all real guys that I knew anyway. And what the thing he points out himself is you cut backstage and you've got Mason warming up and sparring, and you got Rocky just sat there. And he just said that was kind of deliberate. He's just a little bit, he's kind of a little bit out of his depth now, because it's not what he does anymore. And you've got Spider Rico doing all the religious stuff with him praying and all the rest of it. And then he comes out to Frank Sinatra, High Hopes. And his face when this music starts is brilliant, because it was Paulie's choice and he didn't tell him. I think I just love that, where he's like, what's this?
Yeah. But it's almost appropriate though, isn't it? I do like it as a kind of entrance music. But we do get the whole face-off between him and Dixon before, which is what's the line? It ain't over till it's over. I was like, what is that, an 80s thing? It's probably 70s.
70s, actually.
Yeah, he's just basically saying, don't hurt me, don't piss around, and I'll make you look quite good.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm not here to. A lot of people come to Vegas to lose. I didn't.
No, I didn't come here to lose, exactly.
The referee's a real guy, Joe Cortez. I don't know if he still referees, but he certainly did back here. The interviewers.
The announcer's real?
The announcer's Michael Buffer. Yeah. Let's get ready to rumble. That's Michael Buffer, the HBO announcer.
Yeah, he's a famous announcer.
When they're interviewing people, going back a bit about the computer fight, you've got the guy there with the hat on who's holding an unlit cigar. That's Bert Sugar. He has passed away now. He had lung cancer. Funnily enough, I've never seen him light any tobacco, but he did die of lung cancer. But he used to write and talk very intelligently about boxing. Bernard Hernandez, I think, was the other guy. I've read some of his stuff in the past. So this is just absolutely flush with people that make it that give it verisimilitude, if you like.
I think that's fantastic because it makes it more authentic, doesn't it? You haven't got like stand-ins or people portraying
and
being presented as hosts.
Tyson was at the fight. Was at the fight, and they just said, "Do you want to do this?" And he said, "Yeah, why not?"
Yeah, he just happened to be there. He's like, "Oh yeah, let's do it." So that I think that's really good. It makes it more authentic and gives it more atmosphere.
Just giving Dixon shit.
I mean, by the time the film come out, Tyson had retired. But
but it's still good. I mean, you've got an authentic fighter. Who's there, who's been in the ring, he's got that experience behind him. It just kind of gives it a real air of authenticity, which is fantastic to see. I think.
Didn't you say Mr. T was going to be in this?
Yeah, Mr. T was going to be one of the ringside announcers, stroke commentators. Basically, I think he was going to be what Apollo was in the first fight in 3.
Oh wow!
And he was going to explain that he'd found God and everything. I don't think there was going to be a load about it, but basically he was going to be, if you like, a reformed character. Not that he was necessarily a criminal, but a bit like George Foreman, he was going to be a lot more happy-go-lucky because he'd found religion. And he was going to be at ringside. They wrote, various things, and I think there was even talk of Drago at one point.
What, being happy-go-lucky? And
well, I don't know. I think there was talk of a little bit of a catch-up on what had happened to him. But it didn't happen for whatever reason. Could have been money. This was made for 24 million. The last one 16 years earlier was 42. So pound for pound, this is the lowest budget film probably since the second one. Pound for pound. So the fight's a 10 rounder because it's not for a title. So that's accurate too. And I have to say, the other thing is Mason comes out to 3-6 Mafia. Now, didn't that win an Oscar? Because I do remember at the Oscars that year, somebody said, and now the official count, Oscars, 3-6 Mafia 1, Martin Scorsese 0.
Oh, maybe it didn't. I can't remember.
I don't know, it might have been for another film, because I'm pretty sure this is the same year as The Departed, so possibly not. But yeah, somewhere around there, they did win like an Oscar for like Best Song or something.
3-6 I'll look this up right now. 3-6 Mafia.
What did they win their Oscar for, Chris?
Academy Award for It's Hard Hit Out Here to Pimp.
Oh, for Hustle and Flow.
Yes.
That's the Terrence and Phillip movie.
No.
I was about to call him Terrence Phillips.
Terrence Malick?
No, not Terrence Malick. Terrence Howard from
Terrence Howard, that was it.
the original Roadie.
Yes.
He was in Hustle and Flow.
I've never ever seen that film, so I just deny all knowledge.
Well, it's not. I promise you,
it's not a Terrence Malick film. No,
it's not a Terrence and Phillip film.
It's not a Terrence Malick film either. No.
Hearts of Fury.
Oh.
Asses of Fire. That's
Asses
it.
of Fire, wasn't it?
Oh my god, I can't wait till we do those films. That's going to be so
Hey,
fun.
I have a feeling I'd really enjoy that if it was a real film.
They should do one. That'd be so funny.
What a guy's South Park, just do a real Terrence and Phillip film.
Yeah, Terrence Phillip the movie. I think after
But anyway, so the fight starts. I'm not that fond of the fight, and I think some of it is it's improvised, and of course it's improvised rather than fully choreographed by somebody who isn't a boxer. So now you've got Sylvester Stallone as a relatively old man in boxing terms, trading punches with a world champion, and it all looks a bit amateurish on his side. So I don't love the fight particularly.
Well, it doesn't help that it starts out like as very slow slug as it would do, because obviously he's just dancing around him, punching him. He's trying to punch him, and he just keeps missing. So it just
he
feels
did say
like...
that. That does remind me. He did say that on the commentary. He said it was in keeping with action cinema of the era. He said, but we were throwing too many punches it had got to too many punches, too many haymakers, too many loud noises on them. He said, so we used real punch noises, which they claimed for 4, but when you watch 4, I don't believe that. And he said Mason is quicker. He said, so the punches we used were like more thwipping and in like a higher register. He said Rocky's were like lower and more thudding. And for the most part, particularly early in the fight, we used real noises. And he said, if we missed or didn't make contact, we didn't put a contact noise on it.
Okay.
And he kept having to encourage Tarver to hit him for real. And he just said it was really hard because he's a fighter and didn't want to. But there's a bit where he's put on the floor, and if you watch it now and you know what you're looking for, he's really struggling to get up. And it's because he was hit for real, and he just said I was spaced out. He said I went to reach for the rope and I just couldn't get up.
Oh.
He said thankfully we had editing. So, and I don't know if is it the first or second round. Mason breaks his hand on Rocky's hip.
Does he? I can't remember.
Yeah, because basically Rocky has a massive sort of recovery and puts Mason down, and it's after Mason's hand has been hurt but hasn't yet numbed up. So he's in pain and can only throw with one hand.
Oh yeah, sorry, I was thinking of Rocky. No, yeah, it kind of almost gives like a bit of excuse then. He's like, oh, I broke my hand, so it's kind of like it kind of.
But I think you have to do that.
Yeah,
I think it's the only way you get to the end of this fight, and Mason isn't massively pissed off. He's like, well, I fought through massive adversity and a bad injury. I mean, I've seen a fighter in the past win with a dislocated shoulder, and they made heavier weather of the fight than they normally would have, but they were pleased for that very reason. They got through it, and it's the only thing that was going to make it competitive, because frankly Rocky would have been done in about 4 rounds otherwise.
I guess, yeah. No, that makes sense. So it's like he earns his champion stripes by battling through an injury, basically. Yeah,
pretty much.
Okay, I get that.
And that's about it. I mean, the film is fairly thin, really. I mean, we've got a 10-round fight that, by the end, they are frantically throwing at each other when the bell, ends the fight. And I kind of like that. Mm. It's kind of got a very frantic ending to it. They fought each other to a standstill, basically.
There was a few sort of like shots that were kind of like stylized in that black and white but red blood coming down the face.
Didn't like it.
Did you not like it? Did you seem out of place?
Yeah, just seemed out of place. Didn't like it. It reminded me. I alluded to it last week, where when Rocky's knocked down and get up, you son of a bitch, Mickey loves you, and you get him sort of almost glide upwards to that music. And I said then that's actually something like Sly would have directed himself, a bit like this really, where he's nearly going down. He goes down on one knee or something, and it's and then it's like I told the boy. It's about how hard it's not about how hard you hit. And you've got his internal monologue going on. Never really liked that stylized stuff very much. But it's not ruinous. It's all right. I did like them giving each other the odd look around their trainer. There's bits where they're on the stool and you just see him glance around his trainer towards Mason, and Mason just looks back like this crazy old man.
It's like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
And I love the fact that at one point they call it out because Jim Lampley says, "Welcome to Rocky World," meaning basically he just should not still be there. They call out the essential absurdity of it. And the other bit I love is when Max Kellerman, who's the youngest of the three of them, says, "Rocky's just asked me how I'm doing." Rocky Balboa just asked me how I'm doing. I can't believe it. I'm a fan. I love that. They do a really great job. I mean, they're professional presenters, but they're not actors.
No.
And they've just gone in and done their usual job as well as they can, which has got to be difficult when it's stop-start and a director and not a real fighter and everything else. I think they do great.
Well, there is a kind of like that sense of like of them saying like, I can't believe I'm actually going to be seeing a Rocky fight. Like,
yeah.
So
I'm about to call a Rocky fight.
Yeah. So yeah, it kind of. How do you feel on the ending though? Like, so obviously they cut 2 different endings. Obviously, one where Rocky wins.
Alternative ending,
there is, the alternative ending is he basically wins on the split.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of filming of. He said that there was a lot of. He said he hung around in the ring a lot after the fight for a long time, and as he was looking at it, he was like, "No, Rocky, it's not about the result," which does bookend it nicely with the first film. It's not about the result. The first one, he calls Adrian to him, and that's all he cares about. And in this one, well, there's nothing left in the ring for him, so he gets out and just sort of milks the applause and takes it away from the champ. Greedy bastard.
He says it. He says it to. He says to Paul. Well, Paulie says to him, "Is like, have you got rid of the beast?" It's like, "Yeah, the beast is gone."
It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, beast aftershave, take one.
I must say,
smell.
It's okay. I'm smelling mainly.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, oh no, I hope they're not going to do that. But
The beast is out.
the beast, yeah, so it
That
would
could have
be
been the
speeding mainly
tagline,
anymore.
couldn't it? You could have had him on like a magazine, like he did in the start of Rocky 3, with Rocky says the beast is out, and then like beast aftershave.
Get ready to smeal mainly.
Get ready to smeal mainly. Turn your lady into a beast. It's Christmas.
Man beast.
Man beast, that was it.
So yeah, he said he very nearly ended it as he's leaving the ring and taking the applause and
pointing to everyone,
coming back
shaking
for one
hands.
final wave. He said that the bit where he's sort of got his hand up and he's sort of like high-fiving, if you like, the members of the crowd. He said it freeze framed on that. He said it was so nearly the last shot of the film.
It felt like it was.
It was meant to be, but then he thought, no, I've sold Adrian short there.
Thought we sold us short for the entire
By
series.
like fucking burying her and not having the film at all.
I must
And now
say,
you're worried about it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I found it a bit jarring. I was like, okay, really?
Yeah, well, Adrian, we did it. What was that then, Rocky?
Well, yeah,
What did
explain,
do
you know.
it do? So that was a bit of a clumsy reach back, but
But what do you think
not
of
to be confused with
Dixon's?
speech around.
I was going to say, choose your words carefully, Dave.
What do you think of Dixon's victory? Then I think that sort of like settles.
What do you think of Dick's son? Well, I like a good reach around.
Yeah, yeah. On that note, yeah, Dixon's victory.
What about it?
Well, do you think it was like, well, because I never really understood it. I never really understood like why he'd be like, because I think from an audience perspective, they would have walked out and said, yeah, whatever. You couldn't even beat the world champion like an old man, like. You know.
Yeah, see, I think the overall result would be to hurt his reputation. I think on balance, the audience would say, well, he has proven what heart he's got now because he was badly hurt in the fight and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But the end result would be, I'm supposed to measure him against people, like, you know, greats of the past, like in this universe, Apollo Creed, etc. When he couldn't get comfortably past. He couldn't get a better result against a 55-year-old man, which is the age Rocky's being played as here, even though Stallone's a little older than that at this point. He couldn't get past him any easier than Apollo did when like Rocky was 29, 30. I'm not convinced he'd be as pleased as he is.
Yeah.
No, I must say I kind of feel the same. It's a bit, it's not very convincing for me. I don't think.
I mean, of all the things I've said tonight and I'm gonna say tonight, I'm quite happy to be disagreed with there. You know, I know the Rocky Balboa podcast listen to us, and if you disagree with us, tell us why. What is it about this that he would be this happy? He would get some comfort from having shown some heart, I think, but
found the measure of a man. He found
surely,
Yeah, exactly.
surely a Dixon, a sort of taking it easy Dixon would probably have expected to finish Balboa in like half a dozen entertaining rounds. Not life and death split decision over 10 rounds.
And plus all the crowd are chanting Rocky as well. It's like no one sort of seems to really give a shit about him.
Yeah, all
Nobody
you've
really bothers
done,
about Dixon.
all you've done is given the fight-going public a massive dose of nostalgia that'll just say, yeah, actually, this generation is shit, isn't it?
That's my real problem with it. I mean, it's first of all, it's kind of, you know, rated as an exhibition fight, and also the fact that, I mean, if I'm honest, Dave, you know, my history and knowledge of boxing is very limited to this film, and obviously not as great as yours. I was probably more growing up with sort of like Hulk Hogan and stuff like that, you know, in the sort of the 80s and 90s. But to me, that there's no real stakes. It's just basically, I mean, it's not to say that there's anything wrong with it. It's just basically a nostalgia trip, but there's no real weight or threat, you know, behind this fight, as it were. And it just seems a bit of a kind of, I don't know, very kind of paper
I just
thin,
think it's a stretch.
victory, I guess.
I think it's a stretch they even would have done this.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a stretch Rocky says yes to this in the first place. I do think it's a stretch, despite that sort of lip service to letting the beast out. I think that kind of came a bit out of nowhere. So, I mean, he's clearly not a happy man,
No.
but he talks as though there's like pent up rage, and I just don't see it.
No, exactly.
So all of a sudden he wants to fight again, which I don't believe. An ex-heavyweight champion who the last time was told he had brain damage. Now, I'm willing to accept the off-screen explanation that that's a misdiagnosis and everything else. But if that's the last word you were given on it, why would you suddenly start even looking for a license again. You know,
No,
the
you need
age
a bit
you
more
are.
motivation for the characters.
You know,
don't
I
you,
know
really?
I know it's written by different people, and it's 9 years further on again. But in Creed, he says to young Adonis, time got him about Apollo. Well, that was a man in his late 30s. How do you think this is ever going to be safe or desirable or good for you or give you anything in life?
Yeah.
And to leap from that to a special event at Las Vegas, which then sells out, I find that very, very hard to believe. I do. Now, I know there's some fantasy in it. The overall result is, I think that you kind of forget all of this and just watch it and enjoy it.
Yeah, you just go with it, don't you? Kind of let it wash
I think
over
it's
you.
a really, really enjoyable film, and it does it about as well as you're ever going to do this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, once you give it a moment's thought, and it's like, come on, really?
Yeah.
I think that's basically where it is. The film just has like loads of nostalgia that makes you feel happy, almost like the match itself. Like the fans would be like, "Oh, great, we're seeing Rocky again," but there isn't much meat to go on if you actually look into the film more beyond that.
No, when you sort of pare it back.
No, but it's the sort of film you're happy when it's on, but chances are if I'm ever going to rewatch a Rocky film, it's not going to be this.
But that's almost not a quality judgment in my mind, because I do, for me, I mean, you might disagree because your film tastes are different to mine, but I don't think it's that, I prefer 3 and 4. I don't. I think this is better than 3 or 4 or 5.
Yeah.
But it just feels, because it's so far removed in time, it's stretching any kind of credibility in a series that has done that for quite a while anyway, that it just doesn't feel particularly essential. It is a little victory lap, and I don't begrudge the series that, but I was very defensive of this film when things like Creed came out. But now I think about it, Creed is a stronger film than this, comfortably.
I think Creed adds to what Rocky 5 should have been. I mean, this kind of touches on what Rocky 5 should have been. Creed kind of adds to that. It takes that element of the Rocky becoming the trainer rather than the fighter, and does the better job that way. I do agree with you. It is a better film than what I say in terms of like, well, I'll watch it again, But what I'm saying is there's nothing to really to go back on it for. It's like, well, what I'm watching it for. I mean, at least I can just sort of watch Rocky 4 for just the sheer enjoyment of it and kind of laugh along the way. The other 3 films have actual story and character moments in that I can kind of go to, if I want to relive any of those. Not Rocky 5, but
Apart from Rocky 5.
Yeah, but at least Rocky 5 is actually trying to do something as well. So
I don't have. Yeah, we talked about it last week. We weren't kind to it, but
yeah,
it's got almost comedic how much of a kicking that film gets. Because it's come on, folks, it ain't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those films. It's not terrible, but it's not like ultra amazing either. So it does its job.
If I'm in the mood to like concentrate and think about it and want a quality film, the only film I'm really going to put on's the first one. Mm-hmm. If I want something a little bit more feel good, as in, yeah, fuck it, I do want the happy ending, I'll stick 2 on. And they're the only 2 that really I need.
Yeah.
Of the first 6. Having said that, this is the only one that lives anywhere near them in quality.
Yeah, in terms of like how it's handled, like the style of it, yeah, definitely.
It's a really well-made film. There's a few stylistic things I don't like, but Sylvester Stallone brings his A game. Burt Young really, really brings his A game, and we'll talk a bit more about Burt Young next week for reasons we'll go into next week. And I just think everyone is really, really committed to making this a great film rather than like another Rocky film. And so, yeah, I like it a lot. I just knew that going to scene, I'd have a lot to say about it that wasn't so positive. And also, the film's a lot thinner than I remember. I was quite surprised to find it only had a 100-minute running time. I don't remember it being as slight as it is. Or I didn't remember that.
Yeah, no, I always expect it to be a little bit longer as well, but I was like, I kind of like a sharper running time now as well sometimes.
I know that.
But one of the things I did find strange, did you notice the girl who approached him at the bar, who wanted a drink of him, kind of like shouting down the guy?
Yeah,
I was like, where the
so,
fuck did that come from?
That was at random.
I know. She was
Who is she?
She was just a real person from Philadelphia who lived a few blocks from that bar.
Okay.
And they put her in the film. She'd lived this life,
A
apparently.
bit of local colour.
Yeah, definitely. He said I wouldn't have got that from an actress or anything else. Well, fair enough. Okay.
No, I mean, I
think a lot of this film is
a bit random where that kind of antagonistic behaviour came from, but I think what the performance that she gives in that short amount of time is very raw and very real and very emotional. So I will say that to her credit.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think all the step stuff isn't really necessary. Although it's nice to see him finding friendship with a woman, I kind of think it kind of falls between two stools, because you can see that she's there to be. What is she there to be? In that you could see that the studio are pushing for romance, and he's pushing back against it, and they leave it in this nether world of there's some kind of attraction and closeness there, but what is it? And so I end up kind of almost wishing she wasn't in the film.
No, it's kind of meant to be a replacement for Adrian, but obviously you can tell that that's what the studio were pushing for, and also you can tell that the Sylvester was like, no, it's not what should happen, and I think that's kind of basically kind of what she's there for, just as a kind of not love interest, but sort of female support figure, I guess.
I mean, if it was built in maybe the part of Rocky getting over Adrian in some ways, but that's not really addressed.
No.
Well, he doesn't get over her, does he? Really?
No, he doesn't.
Well, no, exactly. I mean, but if there was like something that he needs, like say, like I just can't like be around women at all, or something, you know.
You got something like Marie, who's a happy medium.
The only thing I can understand about it is there's not many women in this film.
Yeah.
And you think, well, unless Rocky's world is to be entirely male, with the exception of like the hostess at his restaurant or maitre d' or whatever a role's meant to be, and I can understand it from that.
It's just like look around, it's like where's the chicks? There's like literally all guys, without Marie, which I understand the element, but then again, part of that problem is though it kind of undermines the fact that she's there. Is just well, you're literally there to kind of balance things out a bit. That's really
it's all they've almost overthought it. It's like we best have, and I'm not sure it's the most organic thing in the world.
Yeah.
Certainly, we're going to see a love interest in next week's film, which we won't bother spoiling now if you haven't seen it. That you could still say, well, what's the point? But it's like, no, that actually plays a lot more natural.
Well, and it's not love interest for Rocky, by the way. It's
No, it isn't.
Thank God.
No, it isn't. Him and Punchy don't go all the way.
No.
So,
Well,
final
Punchy.
thoughts, Becca?
Yeah, again, just to echo what you guys say, I know it's not very original. Yeah, I mean, there are aspects of this film which probably for me do belong, just in terms of plot and character, do probably belong on the small screen. But I say what it kind of lacks in terms of sort of character and development and any kind of real sense of plot really is kind of made up for in production values. I mean, the same with Rocky 5 in terms of the way it's made, the way it's structured, the way it's lit. It's very much kind of going back to the streets and other streets as well. I think the plot is really paper thin, but again you've got the characterisation of sort of Rocky, who's kind of as you said, it's one last hurrah, it's one last victory lap, and again at this stage you don't, as you said, you don't sort of really begrudge it so much, because that is what it is. I think Marie, I was going to call her something else then. Marie, I think, is underserved. Steps is really underserved, and a little bit of storyline that's, one character too far. Character of Spidey Rico, seeing him again, it's another callback to the first film. That's very kind of, there's a lot of pathos in his scenes. And again, you've got a lot of callbacks, obviously, the turtles and the dog as well being a metaphor for where Rocky is in his career. There's a whole lot of throwbacks there, and I just think, this is obviously before Creed sort of going to come along. It's like the one last hurrah, and I think it's the ideal way to go out, really. I think 'cause you're going out, even though Rocky didn't technically kind of won, I guess, you're still going out on a high. I think it's a good way for the series to come to its natural end, as it were. But I still rate it highly, probably better than 4 or 5 or 6. Well, this is Rocky 6, but 3, 4 or 5. But I think I would rank it quite high.
Way better than itself.
Or 8 or 9. But no, I just remember back in the 90s when you could still go to Blockbuster and rent VHS, for example, and you had that kind of anti-piracy video before the main film.
God, and you can't skip it as well. It's like so annoying.
You can't sort of fast forward through. But I remember, I think the other was like basically a guy buying counterfeit videos and that off a street trader, and it's like Rocky 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and it's like lo and behold, here we are today. You know, we're actually getting these kind of films.
Couldn't skip it, and it's like, well, why are you telling me that I actually got this DVD? This is actually a legal copy. What?
And that was an annoying thing. Like with videos, obviously you could fast forward through whatever, but with DVDs, I remember it's like back in early 2000s when I was sort of buying sort of DVDs, you couldn't always skip them. Like sometimes you could sort of fast forward them, or for some reason you couldn't always skip past it. It's just like so frustrating.
So that's our. Do you expect us to talk top tip for this week? Start remanufacturing VCRs and go back to VHS, folks.
They're really expensive to buy now, amazingly enough. I think I'm sure there's a shop somewhere in Bristol, I think, that still hires out VHS and VCRs, probably for quite a big fee, I imagine. But complete.
Why? I don't know.
Go into Bristol.
Nobody has a TV to play them because they don't have Sky. I don't know. I've gone completely off topic here. But in a nutshell, I quite enjoyed Rocky Balboa for all its faults.
Bourbons.
All its Bourbons, people.
While we're going off topic, Bourbons.
Bourbons. And...
Bourbons to you.
Bourbons to you too.
Can we expect us to talk Christmas hamper? Along with replica Charlie Brigden beards.
Oh, don't mention Christmas yet. Oh dear.
That would just be like the beard in Blackadder 2 with the sailor guy that
big bushy beard.
Tom Baker plays. What's his name?
Yeah. Red beard rum.
Red beard, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
A couple of olives, sardine juice, and Bourbons to you.
It would just be a big case of Bourbons, I enjoyed Rocky 6 or Rocky Balboa as it's actually called. Was it actually called Rocky 6 in some places?
No. Well, I can't speak for every territory, but not in the main territories.
No, I don't think.
No.
//
/IMDb.com/.
Yeah, obviously it made me cry in some places. I found it very entertaining, but I say the plot's very weak. I wouldn't necessarily think I'd necessarily watch this again. I'd only really watch it if I was going to sit through the entire Rocky films. But, it is probably one of the better directed. It's one of the better directing jobs Stallone did for the series. And it's got a lot to like about it, but the problem is there isn't any meat in the story that actually draws you into it. So you do tend to go for more the weaker ones or the best ones, like actually Rocky itself. You might as well just watch that. But it's certainly not a wasted watch. It's definitely worthwhile seeing if you've not seen it before.
I think that's the point. In 2006 or 2007 in this country, you go to the cinema to watch a Rocky film, and this is absolutely the best you could ever imagine. Far, far better than it had any right to be. We're now 10 years on from that, and it's just another one in a box set. So it's like, well, I'm looking at this box set. What matters to me? What interests me? There's a big difference between this is the Rocky film we're offering you, and yes, this is great, and, well, pick a Rocky film. You're not going to pick this, really.
Yeah, I can imagine seeing it in the cinema and people walking away happy. At the time.
I really was, and I still like it. I mean, I don't wish to sound that negative. We're all saying what a positive experience it is, how it's better than it had any right to be, how it's well acted, how it moved us.
I think at the time it did receive quite mixed reviews. I think, who was it? I think the Guardian at the time may have given it 1 star or something ridiculous like that. But I think generally,
it had boxing in it, and it's the Guardian.
Well,
I mean, fucking hell. It had been about planting a fucking, allotment somewhere, they'd have probably liked it.
Did
the
Guardian not like boxing?
My point is that generally it receives at the time sort of
The
overall favourable reviews.
The Guardian did an article the other day saying something like Idris Elba shouldn't be Bond, no one should be, and then it had an article about.
That was Joanna Lumley saying that apparently. But anyway, that's a whole other argument for another day.
She said it should be Idris Elba, right? Which is a point I don't really care to go into now. Maybe during a commentary coming up or something we might. But she made a comment on that, and the Guardian used it. And I read the Guardian because it's kind of in line with my politics, right? But it is beyond fucking parody at some points. They had an whole article about how sexist and passé the Bond films were.
Well, no.
And it's just like they just suck the fucking joy out of everything in life, the Guardian. And some of their articles are really funny.
And the newspapers are available.
And I just remember, I think it was Al Murray. He had this fucking hashtag on Twitter once called Guardian Bond. And it was basically,
I think I remember that, yeah.
Basically, rename the Bond films as though it was like something the Guardian would come up with.
More politically correct.
So I put in, the world is not sustainable. And he retweeted that. He quite liked it. But that's the Guardian. I kind of like it and hate it at the same time. It sucks all the pleasure out of things, you know?
No, they can be quite
That's
dry
the thing.
and very PC.
I'm an old lefty, but offer me a night on the piss and I'll take a bunch of fucking fascists anytime over a bunch of Guardian fucking readers.
It may not have been the Guardian. It may have been another left-leaning paper, but I think I remember sort of reading at the time, and there's like 1 star. I was like, oh my god, I'm not going to see that. But generally,
at all. I mean, I remember Kermode's review from the time, and it wasn't unlike ours. I mean, I disagree with him quite a lot, but the tone of his review was very much. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's rather silly, but boy, does it take you with it.
Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah, you've got the emotional depth there, haven't you? And you've come to the sense that you've come full circle, as it were. You've been on that journey with him. And that's what matters at the end of the day. I think that's what's really important.
Totally off the point, listeners. If you any of you ever follow Jim Will Paint It on Facebook or Twitter, I put in he asks what you want painted, right? And he does these really like good things as celebrities and weird fucking.
He does it like an MS Paint or something, doesn't he?
I don't know how he does it, but it's really good. But I put in a request tonight for a painting of inside Buckingham Palace. And I've gone with the Queen, Riddick Bowe, Samuel L. Jackson, Ronnie Corbett, Michael Aspel, and Queen Latifah. I don't know why Queen Latifah, but I decided to add that one.
I was going to say, when did we sign
when did she come into it?
No, she became part of the law tonight.
Okay.
And they're all sat around eating bourbon biscuits and drinking copious vodka martinis whilst listening to our podcast. And we're saying, starring Edward Snowden. And if any of you want to fucking bombard Jim Will Paint It with the exact same request, be our guest, because I'd love to see that.
That would be amazing.
It's funny you should bring up Edward Snowden, because I was just thinking today, like, wouldn't it be great if, like, when we get to, like, the replacement for Daniel Craig, and it's, like, some unknown actor called Edward Snowden?
It'd be great. Not the Edward Snowden, just an Edward Snowden.
Yeah.
Edward Snowden, yeah. If your name is Edward Snowden, get in touch
obviously,
with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Obviously, but that would just be brilliant. That would actually make my day.
That would be amazing.
The new Bond is Edward Snowden.
Starring Edward Snowden.
Starring Edward Snowden.
The thing is, now, you wouldn't be able to say it normally, would you?
No.
You wouldn't be able to go, and
Edward
tonight
Snowden.
it's Shatterhand. Starring, it would be starring Edward Snowden. And then it would be Ralph Fiennes. All right, it's Rafe Fiennes, actually, but Chris insists
Rafe
on
Fiennes,
saying
actually.
Ralph. I love that. Chris always says Ralph.
But no, it's Rafe, don't you know?
He's a Ralph. He can't lie to me.
It's
No, he's
spelled
Rafe.
Ralph, but it is Rafe.
I did many years of scheduled briefing.
No, that's basically like,
Ralph ends.
It's basically keeping up appearances, isn't it? It's like bucket bouquet.
Bouquet.
It's like no, you're Ralph.
Rafe.
Don't try and posh it up.
And what part are you playing?
Thug number 2. Roll.
Man on street. Oh.
By Ralph Fiennes. Okay. Have we got any quiztastic times?
I have the answers from last week, but I don't have any quiz questions this week, sadly. I'm saving it all up for our next film, and also Bat Facts when we come to do Batman.
Bat Facts. Batman is coming.
No, Bat Facts.
That's going to be awkward in that rubber suit.
Hope it doesn't stain.
Quick, get speaking up.
Like the dry cleaners. Clean this.
Oh dear.
I think sometimes he forgets when he's like in different outfits. You know, when he's like actually as Bruce Wayne. He goes like,
Oh, see,
Oh dear.
there is a series of sketches on that one there, and there was one where he forgot to drop the voice and forgot to take the eye paint off. He gives away his identity. I'll post it on our Facebook page after
that's
this.
another thing. The eye paint is like Jesus Christ. You'd be like, hang on, give me 10 minutes. Just kind of.
No,
I'll pin it
it's
on-
basically it's parodying the bit from Batman Begins where he says, "Just tell me who you are. It's not who I am, but what I do that defines me." And she says, "Bruce," and he goes, "No." And it's a long sketch running on from that of him trying to convince her he's not Bruce Wayne and Bruce Wayne is not Batman. It's really fun. So that's coming soon. What were the answers from last week's, Becca?
Let's have a look. Okay, so question number 1 is who is Luke based on, and what's his catchphrase? Obviously, that's Don King, and the catchphrase being only in America.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. No, question number 2, where's Tommy Gunn from? Oklahoma. Question number 3.
Been there.
Been there, done that. What was Rocky suffered from? Coming back from Russia, brain damage.
Yep.
And what else? I can't read my writing from several weeks ago.
What was the question? Do you know?
What was the question? Number 4, what was the name of Duke's contender? Obviously, Union Ken, that we had.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that was it, obviously. And what was the item did
Or if Chris was pronouncing it, it'd probably be onion can.
Onion. Oh dear. Union Ken. Oh dear. Yeah, what was the item that Rocky gave to Tommy Gunn? It was actually Creed's red, white and blue trunks.
Yeah, though it wasn't. It was his own, but it was based on...
No, exactly. To much controversy. Yeah, sadly no quiz questions, no stupid quiz questions this week. I'll save them all for our end of Rocky's special.
To be honest, we're not convinced the quiz has taken off because we don't exactly get like inundated with answers.
No, I haven't. I tried to log in to check the emails and was stupidly barred, so I haven't actually checked the emaal account for quite some weeks. So
We had to block Becca. She was.
I was just too naughty, so
Yeah.
trying to hack, but it didn't
So
work.
back to the facts.
Yeah, probably after. Well, I'll leave out Creed, and then when we come to do Batman, it'll just be back facts.
Okay, so social media, folks.
Oh, you can follow me at Cinematronics, and you can also check out the website which has this podcast, which is cinematronics.co.uk.
You can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
As for me on Twitter, I'm at RVMovies. I still haven't changed my name.
And you never will, so
I
let
never
it go.
will. I'm just gonna not bother anymore. No,
At least
you
we've
can
gone past the phase where every 4 episodes Chris goes, "What should you change it to, listeners?" And then we have a
And nobody
same
replies.
conversation, and no one replies. Yeah.
No, I think I'll stick with it to the time being because I haven't got time for that shit anymore.
How
So, yeah,
about
you can-
Rebecca views movies?
This it or
Wow.
some bit of alliteration maybe.
The whole rebranding exercise.
Or watches movies?
This is it.
All right.
That's quite long and clunky.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Thrilling, folks.
Or Bourbons to you. There you are. That should be-
Bourbons!
To you.
But nothing boring about Bourbons. I love them.
If you happen to
love
be, if you're
them
listening to
so
this and you happen to be a biscuit manufacturer,
Send me some
send us some bourbons, please.
We'll mention. We
Forgive
will
me.
mention you.
Forgive me if I've asked this question, but is there a difference between Bourbons and chocolate creams?
For fuck's sake! I edit the show, so yeah, I've heard you say that a few times.
I've always wanted to know.
Yes, one of them's Bourbons, and the other doesn't fucking count. Yeah, so if you want us to have really natural, organic conversations about how great your Bourbon biscuits are, manufacturers out there,
I prefer
you know,
chocolate creams,
and how
but
Send
it
us some
reminds
samples,
me of
please.
things we've seen in certain films, then send us some.
We'd be happy to test out your products and give you a rating.
Oh, fuck, I'm going to test the shit out of them. They better be branded Bourbons, though, otherwise I can't touch them.
Well, no, I'm sending you guys for Christmas. Oh dear.
Bourbons!
The official biscuit of Do You Expect Us to Talk?
Yeah.
And on that note, if you want to follow us on Twitter, we are at Expect Us to Talk on Facebook.com/Expect Us to Talk. You can also find our lovely videos on YouTube, youtube.com/Do You Expect Us to Talk. We're also on Letterboxd, but nobody bothers with that anymore. And if you want to send us a snail email, it's expectustalk@gmail.com.
All right. Well, how's the Rocky series been for you so far?
Punchy.
There you go. There you go. Right. So next week it's the last time before we move on, which means Becca.
Do you expect Stock will return with Creed?